We now continue with our 7th installment of the Palm Beach Playbook, where we bring you the very latest campaign updates courtesy of official Team Trump members Tommy Pigott and Taylor Rogers. So let's dive in. Yesterday, President Trump held a major press conference where he called attention to the real Kamala Harris, whose weakness, negligence, and incompetence has unleashed unspeakable devastation upon the American people. It was in stark contrast to Kamala's highly scripted and choreographed public appearances. In fact, Kamala has still not held a single press conference since she was installed as the Democrat Party's nominee for president. Tammy Nobles, whose 20-year-old daughter Kayla was brutally raped and strangled to death by an illegal immigrant MS-13 gang member, scorched Kamala for letting her daughter's killer into the country.
The Biden-Harris administration did not do their job. If they would have done their job, made that one phone call to El Salvador, my daughter would still be alive today.
Christy Shamblin, the mother-in-law of fallen Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole Gee, who was killed in the botched Harris-Biden Afghanistan withdrawal, passionately described her support too.
President Trump demonstrates peace through strength. I know what he told the Taliban when he was negotiating with them because I've made it my business to know. And what he said to them when he was negotiating with the Taliban, he said, "I will kill you if you harm one hair on one head of an American."
Then Michael Crappie, a small business owner, described his struggles in Kamala's economy.
Not too long ago, just a few years, the customer and us, the small business owner, we were able to keep up with inflation. There were resources available to us for expansion, or if you had a bad month, if there was something you needed to make up for, it seemed like the support was there. And now, just a few short years later, it seems like all of those resources have dried up. The support's no longer there. We had an expansion plan about 6 years ago that we had to pause.
President Trump also highlighted Kamala's complicity in the death of Jocelyn Nungarai at the hands of an illegal immigrant.
Kamala violated her oath. She desecrated our laws, and she got innocent girls like Jocelyn tortured and killed. Anyone who knowingly sets loose these monsters into our country has absolutely no right to be running for office, let alone the office of president.
Then President Trump announced a new policy targeting criminal illegal immigrant gangs.
I'm announcing that for the first time under my administration, we will be seizing the assets of the criminal gangs and drug cartels. And we will use those assets to create a compensation fund to provide restitution for the victims of migrant crime, and the government will help in the restoration.
He also excoriated Kamala's disgusting smears, lies, and hatred.
Today we're going to talk about the real character of Kamala, and a person who has no remorse for the anguish she's inflicted upon families all across America. On the contrary, I have to tell you, Kamala intends to conflict and keep this misery going, and she's going to keep it going as long as she can, because that's the only way she can get elected. She's going out and only criticizing, talking about Hitler and Nazi, and because her record's horrible.
And finally, he crystallized the stark difference in the two candidates' visions for America and made it clear once more that although Kamala broke it, President Trump will fix it.
Very simply, Kamala Harris is not fit to be your president. We can't have it happen. We can't have it happen. We're going to make this country strong again. We're going to make it great again. We're going to be respected again. Her message has been a message of hate and division, and my message is about saving our economy, securing our border, bringing together the greatest and broadest coalition in American history. There's never been a coalition like this. Everybody's included. And on issue after issue, she broke it. They broke it together. But for purposes of this election, she broke it. Can't let her go. And I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to fix it very fast.
Joining us now to discuss is Tommy Pickett, the Director of Strategic Communications for the Republican National Committee and the Editor-in-Chief of the Palm Beach Playbook. Tommy, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me on.
So I want to draw attention to some of the differences in the strategy, I guess, because with President Trump, it's a lot about policy, vision, about the things that we can do, about the things that he has done for the American people. But with Kamala, it's propagandas, it's hatred, it's divide and conquer. So, I mean, which strategy do you think is going to appeal to more Americans in this election?
Well, I think it's clear that President Trump's strategy is the one that's going to appeal to the majority of the American people because he has a record to back it up. Not only is it a positive vision about his accomplishments, a positive vision about his policies, but it's also backed up by that record, meaning he's going to deliver on those promises. He's delivered before and he'll deliver again. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, is doubling down on the same smears and lies that Democrats have been pushing for really 9 years since 2015 when President Trump first came down the escalator. I mean, it's been a very long time that Democrats have been pushing these lies and smears, and they're the exact same. Unfortunately, though, what we've seen is really heightened rhetoric from Kamala Harris, smearing President Trump, smearing his reporters, and of course, we saw Joe Biden call supporters of President Trump garbage, which is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely. It so is. It's fundamentally un-American. It's one thing to have partisan differences. She's a communist. Trump is obviously an America First conservative guy. So I guess there are some partisan differences, and you expect that in any election, and that might lead to some tensions and a little bit of animosity and maybe some hostility and some barbs back and forth. But this is a whole new level of barbaric and un-American, and to have her calling him a fascist, completely making up lies about him that are verifiably untrue, a quick Google search you could see from his own words, from his time in office. None of it is true. Absolutely not one word of it, but she keeps doubling down and tripling down on that, and she doesn't get fact-checked from anybody in the mainstream media establishment. It's very frustrating to see that, and I'm a little worried that that propaganda is going to move the needle, at least with some voters who already are biased against President Trump. But at the same time, then again, Trump's been very effective here about building a coalition, dissuading those concerns, and really showing the American people why he's the only logic and patriotic choice for this election. So I do wonder as well if maybe this propaganda campaign and the smears coming from Kamala Harris are actually starting to backfire on her and her campaign. The polls might suggest that, as well as early voter turnout in Pennsylvania and Georgia. So what do you think? Are all of the lies really backfiring on Kamala Harris now?
I think they are. I think the American people first see that she's been lying about herself, her past. They see that she's been lying about her policies. She changes her policies every 5 seconds, it seems like, even though she's had this 30-year record of being extremely liberal. She's lying about President Trump. Of course, we've seen that time and time again. And she's also a hypocrite. Her campaign is based off of hypocrisy. Think back to what she was running on when she first was installed as the Democrat nominee. She claimed hers was a campaign of joy. Well, the joy is completely gone. Her campaign now is the campaign of smearing millions of Americans, trying to divide America. And President Trump's been very clear. Every single time he goes out and speaks, he talks about uniting the American people. He talks about how we're all Americans and we need to come together to save this country. And indeed, we're seeing from endorsements across the country that people, no matter their backgrounds, are coming together to support President Trump because he has those common sense policies. So I think the American people are seeing the lies that Kamala Harris is putting out there. And they're also seeing the fact that her campaign is completely based on hypocrisy. Nothing to help the American people, just pure hypocrisy.
Yeah, and complete projection, by the way. I mean, she talks about Trump wanting unchecked power and he's going to make himself a dictator. It's interesting she says that, considering Democrats have been turning this country slowly but surely into more and more of a police state, bringing us closer to authoritarianism. So it's interesting to see that kind of projection, and it really reveals a lot about her agenda and her real agenda. Not the idea that she's going to create an opportunity economy. I mean what she would actually do upon entering office, because they've targeted Trump left and right and many other people who support him, who are firmly behind him, and it's really just quite sad to see that, and again, fundamentally un-American. So I think this is also a classic case of projection. By going after Trump, she's really revealing the truth about her agenda and about how this whole campaign of hers is a Trojan horse for the communist takeover of America. So as we're coming into Election Day, we have less than 1 week left. I'd like to ask you, I mean, are you feeling more and more hopeful about the turnout as we get closer and closer to this pivotal moment?
Yeah, look, everything's looking good. I mean, at this point, our political director, like he likes to say, it's our job to be uncomfortable. We have to run through the finish line on Election Day. But everything that's measurable is showing good signs for President Trump. Again, having said that, we cannot look at those numbers and be anything but motivated. We have to look at those numbers and say, that means I have to get out and vote. I have to get my friends and family out to vote. We have to run all the way through the finish line here. But if you're looking at early vote numbers, you're looking at turnout, we're seeing very positive signs for President Trump, very positive signs for Republicans. We're seeing low to medium propensity voters come out, that meaning voters that maybe don't vote in every election cycle. We're seeing registration gains for Republicans, meaning these states are more Republican than they were 4 years ago when you compare registration between Republicans and Democrats. We're seeing, again, that early vote numbers, again, very favorable compared to 2020 and previous elections. So we're seeing the data back up the idea that President Trump has the momentum here. But the response to that from every single Republican, every single person out there that wants to save this country, the response to that has to be get out and vote and get 10 people that you know to also get out and vote for President Trump too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've been listening to so many great conservative commentators talk about this. Nothing is inevitable at this point. Obviously, we hope, we pray, we have to keep fighting. And even past Election Day, we have to keep fighting to save America. That's what Trump has shown us in the last 9 years. He spent 9 years fighting for this country day in and day out. One of the most successful business people in the whole world. He could be chilling out at some, fancy resort right now, but instead he's working not a single day off in the last 2 months at least, just to try to save this country and bring us back together again. We have this real vision here for actually uniting and forming a more perfect union with the American people that spans traditional different, partisan differences. And I think he's really shown us by working with RFK to Elon Musk to Tulsi Gabbard to Tucker Carlson, he's able to build bridges, he's able to build coalitions, and ultimately he's able to get the job done. That's the real question with Kamala Harris is, would she be even effective? She's got this long list of goals, sure, but could she even do it? Does she even have that capability? And I think a lot of Americans should look at her past record, at her track record, and say, obviously not. I mean, the best indicator of future behavior is someone's past behavior. And Kamala Harris has shown us time and time again, she's the divisive one in this race. She's tearing the American people apart. She's running this country into the ground, and now she's asking us for a promotion on top of it all. It's quite insulting. So I'm not sure why anyone really would think about voting for someone like that when you could easily go with the America First candidate who actually cares about you, your family, your people, your business, whatever it is. So I think it's interesting to see them resort to this heightened rhetoric, and it really is quite disgusting. And I'd like to ask you about what that says really about the Democratic Party overall, because it's not just coming from Kamala Harris. It's coming from legacy news outlets. It's coming from other Democrats like Joe Biden, who called half the country garbage. I mean, what are we seeing from this Democrat Party today? What does this say about who they've become?
Well, I think the idea that this is a trend, this is a pattern from the Democrats is really important to remember here.
Yes.
This is not a one-off incident from Joe Biden. This is something that's been going on for years from the Democrats against President Trump, against Republicans, against President Trump's supporters. We have seen that time and time again. And again, it's because their ideology is bankrupt. They have nothing to offer the American people. They opened the border. They fueled inflation. Our standing on the world stage is worse than it's ever been. And that's the direct result of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies. They have nothing to offer, so instead they're going to try to make people afraid. What we're seeing in the polls is traditionally Democrat constituencies moving towards President Trump towards historic levels. President Trump is polling with Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, young Americans at levels we haven't seen for a Republican in a generation. And that combined with voter registration gains, meaning people that see those prices, see the border, and want to get off the sidelines, want to vote. We're seeing voter registration gains, people registering as a Republican to get out there and vote for President Trump. So we're seeing more people get involved. And Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the Democrat Party, in their desperation is now just trying to smear and lie. I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, I certainly don't think so either. And I really think it's going to cost them, maybe even this election, it could cost them future elections. I mean, that kind of disdain and hatred and pure vitriol, it is so unappealing to so many people who obviously don't even buy into the narrative. And it's like the more and more desperate they become, the worse and worse the poll data gets for them. They become even more hostile and more aggressive. And they're sending people into the arms of the Republican Party and President Trump, who really is just so strong, by the way. I mean, to have people come after him all the time, lie about him, propaganda, calling him a fascist, and he's still here fighting for the American people. Even though he took a bullet to the head, they tried to kill the guy, not once but twice, and he's still fighting for the American people. So if we're also going to make this election not just about policies but about character, we have two very, very different people here. We've got one candidate who's a serial liar and a plagiarist versus Donald J. Trump, who profoundly loves this country so much that he's willing to take a bullet for the American people. That is really, really remarkable, and I think that speaks volumes more than any other campaign campaign slogan or campaign promise or press conference. Those actions right there speak volumes about his character and his resilience and his fitness to come into the White House once again and get the job done. So, we're coming to a break here. We're running out of time, but I'd like to ask you as well about some of the historic efforts that we're seeing, because I like the surge now. I like to see this turnout. I'm just hoping it continues all the way through Election Day and beyond. So what do you think? Do you think we're going to see that kind of historic turnout keep going?
Well, we're working to make that happen. That's our goal here. Every single day, we have to keep on scoring points.
Yes.
These are, you can almost view it like a game with quarters, right? We have to win every single quarter. We have to be the lead every single quarter to make sure we win the game at the end, because that's ultimately what matters. So we're seeing these historic numbers, but we have to put in the work. We are putting in the work. We're putting in the work when it comes to turnout, putting in the work when it comes to election integrity. Everyone watching, go to swampthevoteusa.com, make that plan to vote. We have to get everyone out to vote that's possible to make it too big to rig. So we're hopeful we're going to see that turnout. President Trump is motivating Americans across the country to get involved, and we're hopeful we're going to win in November, and we're working to make that happen.
Music to my ears, Tommy, truly. And thank you, of course, for being here. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me on.